picking up with Suetonius's Virgil. This is about 5 pages long. This is the second page. So, autem. However, moreover, the bona, the goods of a certain exile, quis dam exilis, which was offered by Augustus, with Augustus offering it, he did non sustinuit to acciperate it. So he couldn't bear to take the goods of the exiled man. Posseded, he possessed propi, almost or near, centien sestertium, what's that, 10 million sestertes, from the liberal, lots of T's, etc. I hate these long words. Generous gifts of a macorum of his friends, qui, and he had a domum, a house, locative at Rome, on the Esquilitus hill, which is Juxta, near the Hortus Messinotis. These are top gardens, quam, although in successu, in a retreat at Campania, qui, and in Sicily, he enjoyed, or let's see, ablative of using here, most of the time, plural, most of the time he was in retreat here at Campania or in Sicily. Parentes, plural, it's his parents. Jam grandus emissit. So he lost his parents when he was already grandus, when he was old, grown up. Ex quibus, from which his patrum, his father, was captum of oculus, which is their way of saying one of his eyes was taken, he's blind. And 2 Germanos fratries, and his 2 brothers, in pubrum. So this fellow here, Silonum, hadn't reached puberty, and Flacum, his other of his duos, who had already reached adulthood, who was then an adult, of whose exitum, that's destruction or end or death, under the nominae of Daphnidius, he defletted it. So he wept for his brother Flaccus, using another name. I think it was in the Eulogs or whatever, Eclogs, whatever. Wasn't in the Aeneid anyway. Inter caetera studia. Studia is near the plural. So amongst these other studies, it's what have we got, genitive or dative. So he was given over to medicine, Quoquine also, and Maximaean especially, dedit operum. So he gave work, paid attention to medicine and especially mathematics. Sometimes they call looking at the stars maths, etc. And anyway, he egeted also, he did something also, a case amongst the judges in the law courts. He conducted one course, one case, omnino altogether, adverb, and Camplius, and not anymore than semble, not any more than just once. We've got a bit of a reason there. Nam 4, also in his sermon, in his conversation, him was tardissimum, superlative, very slow of speech, and he was paini, almost similar to an indoctored person, someone who was uneducated. It's charted by Marsilius, says this, that he was. Fuisi. Poeticum, so poetry as a boy ad hoc, so when he was still a boy, he auspicatus, you might want to say began his poetry auspiciously, however you want to do, in the Ludi, in the, we've got Ballastam, so his magistrum, his teacher in the school was Ballastar, who, because of his infamy as a latrocinium, as a bandit, he was co-opertum with lapidabuses. So he was covered up with stones, buried in stones, so he was stoned to death. And so Virgil fecketed this I don't know, I don't speak Greek. Anyway, Monte, under this mountain, tegatud, Ballista is covered up. It's under this mountain, this stone mountain. He's buried, sepultus. Night and day, carpe, this would be the imperative. Take your journey, pick your journey now. Viator, that's the traveller. Tutum. So he was a bandit, and now travellers can travel safely because he's been stoned to death. Dende, one of the most common ways of saying then or next. The cataphalon and the proepia and the epigrams and the diras and item. Likewise, the kirim and the kukulam. That's the one about the gnat. When Eset, that's the imperfect subjunctive, when he was of years 16, so when he was 16 years old. Cuius, of which the material such is, of which the material or the content is, a pastor fatiguus, a fatigued shepherd by the heat, he was wore out. When he was arbor under a tree, condor missing, sleeping, he was, and a serpent prorepided at eum. A serpent crept up to him from a palude, from a marsh. Here comes the culex, the gnat. It provolivated, it flew out, and into his duo tempora, between his two temples, it fixated its aculum, which is its stinger, on the shepherd. But illy he continuo, in a continuous motion, so instantly he contrivated, he trampled down or crushed the coolacam, the grub, the gnat, whatever it was, and he intermeated, he killed the serpentum, and he statuated, he built or established a sepulchrum, a little tomb or tombstone for the gnat, and he fecunded this distiochen, this verse. Parve culex, speaking to the gnat, small grub, what can we call him a grub? A small gnat, the custos pecudum, the guardian of the flock, the shepherd, tibi for you, tale merenting and such mournful sort of thing. He read it, says, gives pro muno in the way of a gift for his life, for his vita officium funeral. So he's doing a duty for the small gnat, giving it funeral rites. Scroll a bit down here. Scripted etiam, he even wrote, or also wrote, concerning which it's ambiguous or undecided whether he did write it, the Aetnam. And mock soon, cum res Romanos in coacit. So he soon began, like a history of Rome or something, something to do with Rome. Offences to the material. So he looks like he stumbled while he was doing this material, and he transited to the Baculia. And Maxime, so that Orsinius Polium, Alphinum Varum, and Cornelium Gallus were celebrated, so that he could celebrate these three people especially, queer, because in the distribution of land, agrorum, those who post the victory, the victory at Philippi, you'll say, by order of the triumvirum, that's the three men in control, for the veterans who had fought with them, trans Padua, across the Po, these lands were distributed and they were divided amongst the veterans. These three people praised student. These had especially indemnum, you don't see that used too often. They'd kept him safe. These three men had helped him. Okay, so as usual, have a daily dictionary word. Indemnus, uninjured, suffering no damage or loss, suffering no loss of wealth, property. Okay. Back to the plot. Where were we? Dende again. Then he scripted it. He wrote the Georgics in honor of Macanitas, however you call it in English, who, Sibi for himself, ad hoc, he was still mediocrely known. He wasn't widely known. Who had, this fellow here, had tulleted help to him. Opium can mean resources of wealth, so he'd given him some help. And adverses against the violence of a certain veteran. So one of these soldiers looks like it was putting violence against him, from which in an altercation, litis, usually means litigation or something, but so they were squabbling over something. Okay, agraria, so this is over his little farm. They were fighting over a farm. Paulum afoot, he went away from there, and quinocator usually means from being killed. So Anarchist here, this fellow with the M, helped him in this against the violence of a certain veteran and stopped him from being killed over a farm. Novisme, last of all, he inchoavited, he began the Aeneid. Argumentum, varium, and multiplex. Well, multiplex just means manifold, various. Argumentum would be the plot, the example of it. And as if it was emblem of both, in star takes the genitive, just as the Carmines, the poetry of Homer, usually when you use in star to get something bigger, but you can basically compare anything with it, it's indeclinable. Besides this, in nominibus, in names and rebuses and deeds, had Greek and Latin in common. So these were the themes of both of them. So he's drawing upon the history of Rome and using Homer as a bit of an influence. And in quoven, in which he was desiring, maxime, greatly desiring, similar at the same time, it was containing the origin of Rome and of Augustus. And that's it for the day. We'll pick it up later.